When I saw my nephew with this tool, I went mad with desire. I couldn't help myself. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Infidelity Stories channel. Today I'm going to tell you how I spent an entire month teasing my nephew until he couldn't resist and finally came after me. My name is Emma, I'm 37 years old, and I'm married to Peter, who's 45. We don't have kids, but we live in a big house in Miami, a beautiful city that feels like paradise. Peter works as a truck driver, so he's away most of the time, and while he earns well, it means he's rarely home. Because of that, I'm often left to find other ways to satisfy myself. Our marriage has always been good, but there were times when I felt incredibly lonely, especially during the nights when he was on the road. That's when my sister asked me for a favor. Her son, Adam, my 23-year-old nephew, needed to stay in Miami for a month to prepare for a military exam. Peter, being the generous and kind-hearted man he is, immediately agreed. When Adam arrived, I was shocked by how much he had grown. He wasn't the boy I remembered anymore. Now at 23, he was an incredibly attractive young man, the kind that would catch any woman's eye, and he was strong too. As he stepped into our house, I greeted him with a smile. "Adam, you've turned into a man. You're so handsome and strong. I bet the girls must be all over you," I said, teasing him. He laughed, saying he was too focused on training and studying to think about girls at the moment. I found it amusing how serious and dedicated he was, but at the same time, I couldn't help but notice a strange feeling inside me, something growing. He was different from other boys his age, and that difference caught my attention. Peter had to go on a work trip again that week, leaving just me and Adam in the house. Adam didn't notice, but I had already started planning how to catch his attention. There was something new and exciting about the idea of being alone, with him. On the first day, I decided to cook a simple lunch, and while I worked in the kitchen, I realized I was more nervous than usual. Being around my nephew, now a grown man, made me feel uneasy, even though I didn't want to admit it. I chose to wear a slightly more revealing outfit than usual for lunch, just to see how he'd react. Maybe it was pure curiosity. When Adam came into the kitchen to help, I could tell he was trying his best to be polite, but his eyes kept lingering on me. "Do you think this outfit is too much? I'm sorry if it is. I'm just used to being more relaxed at home," I asked casually while setting the table. He smiled, a little surprised by the question, and said, "No, Aunt Emma, you look great, don't worry." During lunch, the conversation was light. We talked about the exam he was preparing for, and he told me about his training routine. I complimented him on how fit he looked, saying his physique was something you'd only see on TV. He laughed and thanked me for the compliment, adding that he had been working hard. After lunch, as I was washing dishes, I asked him to help me dry them. As we worked side by side, I noticed his eyes wandering from time to my figure, especially where my top didn't quite cover everything. I couldn't help but wonder if I was starting to attract him. That day, I intentionally dropped a spoon on the floor, pretending it was an accident. As I bent down to pick it up slowly, I could feel Adam's gaze burning into me. I didn't need to look up to know that he was watching. I stood up with the spoon and continued washing dishes like nothing had happened, but I could tell Adam was different now. He was quieter, a little more nervous, and his hands seemed fidgety. "Is something wrong, Adam?" I asked, trying to sound casual. He looked at me, a bit startled, and quickly responded, "No, nothing, Aunt. Emma, just thinking about my training." I smiled at him and told him not to worry so much, that he was doing great and everything would be fine. We finished the dishes in silence, but I could feel the tension between us. Something had shifted. That night, as I lay in bed, I thought about what had happened. It wasn't just about teasing anymore. It was something new, maybe a bit dangerous, but it made me curious about what else might happen. The next day, I asked Adam to bring me a towel while I was in the bathroom, knowing full well that I had forgotten it in my room. I called out sweetly for him to grab it, and when he came to the door, I told him he could come in. "Come in, Adam, or else I'll get water everywhere," I said innocently. He hesitated for a moment, but eventually stepped in, handing me the towel without making direct eye contact. I could see he was nervous, almost trembling, trying to maintain his composure. Our eyes met for a brief moment, and it felt like time stopped. He quickly looked away, embarrassed, and muttered something about needing to leave. As Adam turned to leave, I couldn't resist teasing him a little more. "Thanks, sweetheart. I hope I didn't make you uncomfortable," I said softly, watching the nervous expression on his face. He shook his head quickly, unable to respond properly, and hurried out of the bathroom, closing the door behind him. Once he was gone, I leaned against the wall, feeling my heart race. I knew I was affecting him, but I couldn't deny how much this was affecting me too. As I lay in bed that night, I couldn't stop imagining what was going through Adam's mind at that moment. Was he also struggling with his desires like I was? The thought that he might be thinking about me in that way made me smile. Maybe it was time to take the next step, but carefully, without going too far. It was late, and after a calm day, I decided to see how far Adam was willing to go. Wearing a light nightgown, I went to the living room where he was sitting on the couch, focused on something on the TV. Without saying a word, I walked past him, feeling his eyes following me. I stopped by the kitchen door, pretending to grab a glass of water. "It's getting late, Adam. Don't you want to rest a bit?" I asked in a soft voice. "I'm not sleepy, Aunt Emma. I think I'll stay here a little longer," he replied, trying to sound calm, but I knew he was nervous. "Well, I'm heading to bed. If you need anything, I'll be in my room," I said, leaving a hint of doubt in the air. As I walked away, I glanced back and caught him watching me again. Later that night, I couldn't sleep. The events of the day were still fresh in my mind. I got out of bed and quietly walked down the hallway to Adam's room. I stopped at his door and listened to the soft sound of his breathing. I knocked lightly, and his sleepy voice invited me in. When I entered, Adam was lying in bed, covered up to his waist, but clearly awake. "I couldn't sleep," I said softly, sitting on the edge of his bed. "I've noticed you haven't been talking to me much lately. Is everything okay, sweetheart?" Adam's voice wavered as he tried to keep his calm. "Yeah, Aunt Emma. It's just that sometimes I feel a bit lost. I want to go out with my friends, but I need to focus on my studies." "I understand," I replied, gently placing my hand over his. "Sometimes when we're alone, our feelings get more intense, but don't worry." The touch of my hand seemed to calm him, while also stirring something deeper inside. I could see in his eyes that he was struggling with his desire. "You're special to me, Adam. I just want you to know that," I said, apologizing if my clothes had been too revealing at times. "I feel more comfortable like this, but if it's bothering you, I can dress more appropriately. I know men's minds can wander, even with their aunt." He looked at me with a mix of relief and desire, saying, "I don't mind at all, Aunt Emma. But like you said, when a man sees a woman like you, it's hard to resist, even if she's his aunt." At that moment, I knew the game was about to begin, but it wasn't time to push forward yet. Slowly, I got up, letting my hand slide from his. "Good night, sweetheart." "Sleep well," I whispered before leaving his room. Peter came back home for a few days, and with him, our normal married life returned. But now there was something between Adam and me, something only we shared. Our connection had grown stronger. Adam's eyes lingered on me more, and the small teasing gestures between us were loaded with hidden meanings. It was like we were both waiting for the right moment. The story is not over yet. Please consider subscribe. One afternoon, we decided to have a barbecue to enjoy some family time. Peter and Adam were at the grill talking and laughing, while I was in the kitchen preparing the salad and rice. The scene seemed peaceful, but I felt a nervous tension building inside me. My nephew, who had kept a respectable distance around Peter, now seemed more restless. As I chopped vegetables, I felt a presence behind me. Thinking it was Peter, I turned around, only to find Adam standing very close. I could feel his muscles brushing against me as he leaned forward. My heart raced. With a smile, he whispered, "Do you need help with this?" For a moment, I was speechless. "I'm fine, but what are you doing here? Your uncle won't like it if he sees you away." From the grill, I replied, trying to stay calm, though my voice wavered a little. Adam grinned, that familiar mischievous smile, and answered in a low voice, "He's busy with the meat. He won't notice if I help out here." There was something in his tone that made my stomach flip with excitement and nerves. He stayed close to me while I continued chopping the vegetables, trying to concentrate, but it was impossible to ignore his proximity and the heat of his body next to mine. "You're teasing me, aren't you? Just like I did with you?" I asked, half joking, half nervous. "Maybe. Just a little," he replied in a playful yet serious tone. He stepped back before things could get more intense, returning to the grill with Peter, who was completely unaware of what had just happened in the kitchen. I stood there, trying to regain control of the situation and my own thoughts. Later, during dinner, the playful looks between me and Adam continued. Peter, as usual, noticed nothing, completely oblivious to what was happening between us. When Peter left for another work trip, the house fell silent again, and the teasing between me and Adam grew more intense. One night, after a relaxing bath, I slipped into a soft silk nightgown and lay in bed. But sleep wouldn't come. I knew Adam was in the next room, probably just as restless as I was. The thought of him thinking about me the way I was thinking about him made me smile. I got up quietly and walked to his room. I knocked softly on the door. "Come in," I heard his surprised voice say. When I opened the door, I found him sitting on the bed, shirtless, his muscles reflecting in the dim light. There was something in his eyes that drew me in, a mix of desire. I couldn't sleep. "Maybe I just need a little company," I said, my voice coming out lower than I intended. Adam looked at me for a moment, assessing the situation before replying, "I couldn't sleep either." His eyes traveled down my body, and I felt the heat between us growing stronger. I slowly moved closer, stopping at the edge of the bed. "Can I sit?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. He nodded silently, gesturing for me to sit beside him. As I sat down next to him, the excitement between us reached its peak. Our eyes met, and in that moment, I knew we were about to cross a line. "My dear, would you like to have some fun with me tonight, to celebrate your score on the theoretical test?" I asked, my voice dripping with excitement. He responded, still keeping his voice steady. "That's exactly what I want, Aunt Emma. You've teased me so much. Now let me enjoy this. Don't be cruel to me." "Don't worry, my dear. You can enjoy this until the day you leave. I'll be your reward. Now you'll need to work even harder to pass the physical exam," I said. With that, we kissed for a long time, and I'd never felt so relieved. When we finally pulled away, Adam looked at me with a smile and said, "Now I understand why Uncle Peter is with you, Aunt Emma." I replied, "Peter never truly appreciates my curves, and because of that, I have to find fun elsewhere. But now that you're here, everything feels perfect." The days went by and Peter was still away. The house, once a place of refuge, had now become a playground where every word carried double meanings. And then, Peter came back from his trip, eager to head out for a drink. He rushed off to the bar while I prepared dinner for him. Adam came up behind me, his usual boldness on full display. "Calm down, sweetheart. Your uncle is home today. Leave your door open tonight, and I'll come by at midnight." "Okay," I said in a soft voice, kissing his cheek twice. "Aunt Emma, now that I've had you, I can't control myself anymore." "You drive me crazy," Adam whispered, burning with desire. He kissed me again before heading to the living room. Peter returned home after a long night of drinking, and once everyone had finished dinner, it was time to sleep. When midnight came and Peter was fast asleep, I slipped out of bed and went to Adam's room. He was already waiting for me, ready to receive me. As soon as I entered the room, I locked the door behind me. "Your body is so strong and hard, my love, and that part of you makes me shiver all over," I teased. Struggling to contain his desire, Adam asked, "Are you sure your husband is asleep, Aunt Emma? I don't want him interrupting our fun." I gave him 2 kisses and reassured him. "Don't worry, my love. I'm all yours." We kissed again, and made love for hours. Afterward, I returned to bed, making sure Peter didn't suspect a thing. As I left, Adam kissed me and said, "Your husband has no idea what he's missing, but don't worry, I'll take care of you." I smiled, feeling both excitement and satisfaction, and replied, "Your uncle is leaving on another trip in the last week of the month, my dear. That will be your final week here too, so let's make the most of it." Peter left early the next morning, saying goodbye to me as he headed out for another long trip. As soon as I heard his truck drive off, I went to open the door for Adam. He knocked and came in, looking more confident than ever. "I want this to happen right here in this bed, Aunt Emma. I want to leave my mark. What do you think?" Adam asked. I was only wearing a tank top as I responded, "Sweetheart, this week I want you to leave your mark all over the house. I want memories everywhere. Don't hold back." As soon as I said that, he came toward me, kissing me with all the youthful energy I'd grown to crave. "This is the best trip of my life, Aunt Emma. Thank you," he whispered. We played around all night and eventually fell asleep in each other's arms. The next day, Adam had to take his final exam, and while he was out, I went to the market. When I got back, I found him sound asleep, exhausted from the test. I decided not to wake him, knowing he'd need all his energy for the days to come because they were going to be more demanding with me than with any exam. We spent the entire week together, deepening our connection. But eventually, the time came for Adam to return to his city. As we said our goodbyes, I couldn't help but thank him for all the moments we shared. "I'm so surprised by you, Adam. You've officially become my favorite nephew," I said, laughing with a hint of mischief. Adam smiled and replied, "Thank you for everything, Aunt Emma. These days have been a big learning experience for me. If everything goes well, I might get a job here in Miami, which means I could stay at your place for a while, if you'd like that, of course." "Of course, my dear. The doors are always open for you. I'd love to have more fun with you. We barely scratched the surface," I teased. We talked for a while longer before he finally left. I'm still waiting for his message to confirm when he'll come back. I've already told Peter, and he didn't mind at all. He even said Adam could stay at our house anytime. Before you leave, remember to subscribe to the channel by activating the Tinker Bell to receive notification every time.